Hey, so my name's Rebecca. I work for an organisation called Toora Women Inc. I've been with Toora now for about 6 years, and I am the Director of the Drug and Alcohol Services and the Clinical Services team. We support women who are escaping domestic violence, homelessness and have substance abuse issues, and also those that work in the criminal justice system. So I'm from the UK and I've been over here now for 6 years. We heard about the Being Profile through Everyman, who's a partner organisation of Toora's, and we were looking at doing the Being Profile together, so we had a shared language of how our organisations could work together best. So the coach that they were working with introduced Toora to the Being Profile, and we were really interested in being part of that profiling, and it's been really useful for us. So with Toora we used the Being Profile initially on 3 of the leaders. So it was the CEO, myself and another director. The 3 of us did our Being Profiles and found them so interesting that we started filtering them through the organisation as well. So once I started the accreditation training, which became available, that's when we managed to start filtering the Being Profiles through the staff, so we could share the Being Profiles with the teams as well. So doing my own Being Profile, it started to open up different lenses for me, I suppose. It was going through the distinctions of each of the ways of being was allowing me to see where I was showing up in the world and where I wasn't. And it brought conversation to the table of where, for example, we may be available for contribution, or we may feel we were available for contribution. I became aware that I would give contribution but wasn't willing to receive other people's input. So when we could talk about that at the table, then that became something that we could move and make more workable as leadership together. As a director at Toora, I like to believe that I was performing quite well in my role and supporting the team in theirs. And the Being Profile really allowed me to see areas that I wasn't performing in as well. So, for example, with my commitment to things, I would commit, but I could sometimes overcommit, which would then mean that I potentially was trying to take too much on, whether it was in the area of work or the area of my personal life, trying to take on too many activities in the office and too much at home, then meant that potentially wasn't always looking after my well-being as well as I could. And having that time out for myself is just as important as being able to commit and contribute back to the actual things that I'm taking on. So that was a really good thing to learn. The experience I have now is definitely, I feel like I can tackle things a lot better and with a lot more power, feel a lot more empowered because I'm not so burnt out. So there's a lot more ways of being that, or well, they all come into play around if I'm feeling burnt out, then I might feel a bit resentful, and then I might feel like other people aren't taking enough responsibility or accountability, and it gets in this role sometimes of constantly chasing my tail. And what I realised was when I started looking at my commitment or overcommitment and taking it back to actually slow things down, then I could put things into play where I was clearer with my communication and expectations of others, and allowing for feedback as well, like feedback loops around was my communication understood? Were we on the same page? Do we have the same values? And taking things back a step before trying to reach the end goals all the time. And that's been going really well for myself and feedback from others. Overall, with the Being Profile, my awareness has grown tremendously. The idea of awareness itself to me kind of was very boxed in my vision of what I believed things to be than the way that the world showed up to me. Much my awareness of the different meanings of forgiveness, the distinction of forgiveness and the different aspects that have is one thing that comes up to me a lot. I felt with forgiveness that I didn't hold grudges and forgave people, whereas I realised I hadn't actually communicated things that were going on for me, and there were hidden resentments, and that's okay, but it's a choice, and that I have the choice to make that communication and to let go of that resentment in order to move forward and make things workable. I think the biggest thing for me to see was, and I can't select an individual person, but the group itself allowing vulnerability to grow, and being vulnerable in the space where people started to share intimate and personal things about each other, to be able to trust that there was no judgment in the room when these things were shared, being courage to own things and deal with them in order for them to move on. So the breakthroughs were there for everyone in the room that I met, and it was such a great opportunity to not only witness that, but then feel safe enough to do that myself. So within the space where everyone began being vulnerable within the room, so one of my things is I've come to realise I have an inner voice of "you're not good enough," and when that inner voice is talking loudly to me, I choose to stay silent and not share kind of any of my knowledge or skills or stories, and I tend to hide away in a corner and allow other people to do the talking. And what being vulnerable allowed me to be in that space was realise that being vulnerable is brave and it's courageous, and vulnerability is present for everybody, and it's the way that we allow ourselves to push through that vulnerability to make a difference. And it was giving me the courage to be able to realise it was there, know that that was my vulnerability, and be able to catch it and say, okay, well, I'm still going to speak up now in this meeting and talk anyway and share who I am and what I know and what I can contribute in this space. I feel that the Bing profile has completely changed the way our organisation works. We have shifted greatly in our communication with each other, and the way we've become a team. We've become a thriving team that perform together, that can enjoy shared goals and visions, and that are moving at the same pace towards shared goals. And it's become a pleasurable space to work in, and the team seem to be happy and enjoying the way that we can now all communicate with the same language to make things happen. So it's been really, really beneficial for us. After completing my Bing profile, I was so interested that became interested in the accreditation course. So I took that on and started the training, where I was trained to be able to do the Bing profile accreditation debriefs myself. So the initial cohort that I sent or invited the Bing profile survey to was, for them, it was staff members, staff of the organisation, all from various teams across the organisation, for those that were interested in filling in and finding out more about their way of being. A lot of people came forward and said they were interested in it. I think the fact we work in the area of counselling, psychology, looking at how and why people act the way they do in the world, it was of great interest for a lot of the people in the organisation. And it's been a really beneficial tool so far for staff, because it's helped them see how they're being in the world and how they can also then contribute to others through their ways of being. We've found it a really useful tool for team members to be able to then say, I've found from this my confidence may not be as strong as I'd like it, so can we work on this together, or can you point me in the right direction now to get supports to enhance my confidence levels and things like that. So it's been really useful for staff members to look at ways of being they'd like to improve and bring into the workplace as well as the rest of their lives. As their manager and doing the Bing profile accreditations, it's been a really amazing journey for us to have that connection and communication and trust to be able to talk about the distinctions and how they may be impacting the individual, whether it's in their personal life or whether it's in their work environment, understanding how different ways of being in different individuals, having that understanding of each other assists their working relationships. People approach each other with more compassion, they'll communicate faster rather than building resentment. There's a lot of workability and movement between the team. Now people are seeing each other as that whole being, and that experience has been really beneficial for them, but also as a manager to create that movement. So I was looking at the Thrive Coach training for kind of a multiple role. One, the more I looked into my being profile and read the distinctions over and over, the more that came up for me personally, that I was interested in unpacking further. And also then you could, or I could feel that the impact of the team having the awareness that I was becoming aware of would also be such a benefit for the team as well. So by taking part in the Thrive Coach training, I knew that I would be able to continue supporting the team to the best of my ability, and also becoming the best leader and director I could for the organisation. The Thrive Coach training runs for 13 weeks. It's a really great environment where you get to meet a group of people, talk through the definitions, but really the distinctions, but really unpack people's experiences of those distinctions for themselves, because everybody will experience something different or have a realisation of where something may have been holding them back in the world, and then what that pattern of behaviour might be costing them. So it was really interesting to be able to be in a space that felt safe, where people were on the same page and really unpacking their ways of being in order to be able to assist others through the coaching to also do the same. I feel that being a director, there's many areas that can become challenging. There's different areas within an organisation that will be fighting for resources. There are areas where you may have different approaches to how a problem or a programme should be delivered, different opinions to how various tasks should be completed, and with staff themselves as well. We did get a time where we were struggling with gossip in the organisation, so no movement on completing tasks, but more of a blame about who should be doing the task and who should be following something through. So there was issues that were coming up that I was really interested in looking at, well, what's the missing connection here for us to be able to stop these circles keep going round and round and actually make a difference. I've found with doing the Thrive coaching and the Thrive training that having this shared language, and with the staff completing the being profile and then allowing them to all use the same tools together, we can realise that we're all human beings and we all have these different ways of being, and that they're all different for each and every one of us. And by acknowledging that and being more compassionate with one another, we can communicate better and now work towards that same vision and goal using this shared knowledge and shared tools that assist us all to get to that end result faster. An example of how the tools have helped in the team might be if there's gossip in the office around, oh, I didn't like that decision, or this decision shouldn't have been made. We find it's caught in the moment now by other staff members or the team leader, and very much point to where does this sit on the above and below the line tool, or where does this sit in your way of being around communication. And we unpack the issue within the moment because we now have the tools to do so, rather than things like gossip being left to roll around in the background, which then can create heaviness or stagnation in the team. So because everyone's on the same page and everybody wants movement, the team will pick it up and go, oh, this sounds a little bit like gossip. Do you need support in communicating that to the management? Or would you like me to talk to management about this? Is it something we need to take back to a meeting where we can all revisit the issue that's appearing? And sometimes that's exactly what we do, and we say, okay, there obviously wasn't clear communication at that time. Let's discuss now what needs to happen so we can move forward. It has been an awesome journey, and there has been times when at first it's challenging to suddenly have that confidence and vulnerability to be present to changing the way you show up, and then also accepting a change in the ways others show up. So at first it is confronting to think, okay, I've been shown this tool, but now I have to put it in action. And it's definitely the putting things in action and continuing to do so that makes the change. It's the continued use of the tools, the continued use of reviewing your ways of being, and a lot of feedback. Feedback is really, really important. We use feedback loops in all our meetings now to see how the new ways of working and being are showing up for everyone in that space.